Hey everybody, welcome back to Divulgence. Today we have Andreas Xirtus with us again, and we have Thomas from Paranoid American. How are you guys
Hey,
doing today?
whoa, you just doxed me, bro. My name is private.
Oops.
No, not really. I'm just kidding. I'm just messing
Oh,
with you.
dude, you just
No,
fucking
you're good.
man. You just
No,
made
my name
brain
is on like every comic book I've ever put out. It's right there on the title. So
You're an
good.
asshole, man. You're
Wait,
an asshole.
social security number is 548.
Whoa.
Oh, holy shit, you're an asshole. How you guys doing?
Great, man.
Cool.
I'm fabulous. I think we had a good show earlier. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, that was great.
Looking forward to the second round. This is good. Glad to have Thomas in the house.
Yeah.
Thomas got the Howard the Duck t-shirt, one of my favorite pieces of romance trash media.
It also probably sexually damaged me in some way.
Clearly, I was going to say, like, probably the last episode would have made more sense if we introed it by saying the reason none of us are married is Howard the Duck. But you know what?
Flea Duck specifically, but yeah.
Dude, and Helen Hunt. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Helen Hunt wasn't in Howard the Duck. That was Leah Thompson.
Leah Thompson. Why do I? Oh, because transfers. For some reason, I think I had a fever.
You're
when
not
the
wrong.
bleep-
You still made a very accurate statement. I was just in the context that, yeah, you meant Leah
Which
Thompson.
fits the Back to the Future thing, but transfers and Helen Hunt, and it's good as it gets, which is another problem for me for sure. I should not have watched As Good as It Gets as a young boy.
And Twister.
Track. Well, that was like they made us see that Twister. They took us to the
That's
all
right.
the junior lifeguards. We walked to the beach, and then we didn't go on the beach. The one day we didn't go on the beach, they took us into a movie theater. Anytime they made us see a movie as a kid, I was always like, "Why do you want us to watch October Skies and go from coal miners to being rocket engineers? Why do you want us to see this Kubrickian Twister film?" I mean, you have to wonder, dude. Like one time I helped out in this kindergarten in first grade, and they all took me to see the Slightly Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, which is all about a scientist kid who just wants to get his parents' affirmation, and he ends up geoengineering everything. It's like, read between the lines.
That's nice. In our kindergarten, they'd lock us in a closet and make us watch that Salvador Dali movie with the eyeball and the razor blade, just over and over with Rafi Banana Phone playing.
What, Destino, I think it's called?
That is it, yeah. No, that's the Disney one, isn't it?
Well, Salvador Dali worked with Disney when they were making...
No, there was one where they simulate an eyeball being sliced by like a razor blade. Anyways.
Oh, that's good. My dad told me as a kid that Salvador Dali used to take a key and hold it in his hand over a metal tray in his chair. So when he fell asleep, he would drop it and it would wake him up. And that way he would get like only these instantaneous REM states for long periods of time so he could draw. So I started doing that. And that's, there's no rest for the wicked.
Fascinating person and a perfect example that most artists will die broke and crazy no matter how wildly popular and commercial you can get.
He died well loved though, right? He had that hot gangly wife that was like twice his height, like Boris and Natasha stuff.
He had phones made out of lobsters. I don't know how you can elevate beyond that step. It's like you're so pimp, you're like a surreal pimp.
I mean, I had a Garfield phone and an Alf phone, so I feel like I'm better than Salvador Dali.
Okay, fair enough.
Nice.
Or did your Alf phone have the Garfield phone?
That would have been nice. No, I mean, also had the Alf slippers too, where you can walk around in Alf, like your feet are Alf puppet tears.
Too good, man. Too good. I didn't have any crazy slippers as a kid, actually.
Actually, I didn't get them as a kid. Bernie got me those when I was like 30.
He's wearing them right now.
Yeah, it's like, what do you mean, man? I'm stomping around in them.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff I didn't have as a kid. Like, so I didn't get the Nickelodeon alarm clock when I was a kid. I think that's a major trauma in my life. I always wanted that. So I had to wait till I was like 19 and buy it on eBay. But my God, if I'm not happy to have that, like 5, 4, 3, 2. I love that thing, man.
For me, it was moon shoes. I never got a pair of moon shoes, and now they're just impractical because they wouldn't hold up, both from me and from just time.
I did have LA gear. I got to give myself a little pat on the back for being one of the first kids with light-up shoes. And it just made you feel fast. I saw a kid the other day running around with light-up shoes. It's like there's just nothing better, really, than just having Your shoes flicker as you run.
That's funny.
All right.
I never
Sorry
had
for the
either.
sorry for the nostalgia trip. I'm sorry. Jordan had a plan, and we segued deep. He's
Oh,
like,
that's all good,
let's just
man.
not talk about bees this time. And I was like, yeah. We're gonna follow the plan. It'll be great.
We got to start out light because we're going to get into some territory that's a little dark. So
Yeah, so we could.
this
Yeah,
way
exactly.
YouTube
Yeah, I
knows that
don't-
this is for kids, and now we can actually talk about the real stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like
For
the
those-
the content in this show is gonna make you as thirsty as Hillary Clinton in a village full of 6-year-olds. Am I right?
Burp, burp, burp.
So
testing the
yeah. So yeah, we're hoping this stream doesn't get nuked or the videos afterwards. don't
It'll be
get nuked
fine.
or
We'll be
anything.
fine.
It should be fine.
We're
I
gonna be
mean,
fine.
we got a lot going on. The Rock has lost all of his muscles. Kevin Spacey's back, and obviously a lot of people know Owen Schroyer walked off Infowars and quit. But we're not talking about any of that stuff today. We're going to get into some kind of spicy stuff, and so I hope we don't get any red cards. So I've been seeing some posts about Kuru, and I was like, I've never heard about this. What is this? So that's why I thought I asked you two guys.
Really? I
Yeah.
thought that was a way bigger problem in Canada. You know what I mean? Like
No, man, no, not really. No.
That's funny.
So
it probably is. You just don't hear about it enough. But like,
yeah, probably
the
not.
amount of MK Canada episodes we did about cannibal psycho serial killer couples, what was that couple in Canada that were eating people and they were like pretty?
Oh, damn, I don't know.
I think this is actually one of the interesting things because this is not specific to any single country or culture. Like almost every single country or culture has a story or a version of an individual that eats people.
I think I'm thinking of the Ken and Barbie killers is who I was thinking of from Canada, just real quick. Bernardo and Carla Homolka.
And,
Remember that? Remember them?
Carla Homolka?
Carla Homolka. See, yeah, you think you don't know, but when you think about what you know,
Yeah, but I
you
don't think
totally
This
know.
is new to me. I've never heard of this before.
What? Okay, so
Yeah,
this
no,
girl, like,
Oh man, okay.
you're Canadian. Why don't you tell them the story?
So he was sorry, can you go back?
Back to the story. I'm gonna show you their face for a second.
Yeah.
Basically, you got this like they look like Mormons until you look under their eyes. Something about the eyes. If you get a little deeper there, you get the teeth. That's the scary inbred teeth, and then the eyes right there. You're like, she's got her adrenochrome. Oh, I said it. Drained. And so Carla Leanne Homolka, also known as Carla Leanne Teal, married. She married Homolka. That dude we were just talking about. Bernardo.
Homolka married Paul Bernardo, and during their relationship, he was raping and killing women, and he was known as the Scarborough rapist, schoolgirl killer.
What it was.
And then later they were known as the Ken and Barbie killers because he started bringing Carla in on some of these rapes, which turned into murder, rapes and kidnappings, which turned into murders, including Carla's own sister, younger sister.
Totally.
The way I think the way Carla has tried to tell it over the years is that she was, an abused woman. She wanted to please Paul Bernardo, and Paul
Make him happy.
Well, yeah, exactly. Paul wanted to sleep with his sister, her sister, and she was like, "Okay, to make you happy." So they apparently overdosed her on the chloroform, is the way she says it, and so then they got rid of her body. And I think she was involved in a couple kidnappings though, and murders, not just the sister. And that's a popular one in Canada for sure, but I don't think there's any cannibalism there. Was there? So,
I mean, I could be wrong.
Not that we know, anyways.
Dude, there's definitely stories I've heard though. Canada gets pretty weird in the wintertime, just slightly wet north of Wisconsin. So you know how it goes.
And I feel like let me steer course just for 1 second here too. So in defense of cannibalism, it's not just serial killers and murderers. In fact, some of the earliest versions of Kuru, they were discovered because of cultural cannibalism. And some of those cultures, it was like when grandma dies, it would be seen as an insult to not eat her because
Right.
she's got this generational knowledge. And if you like they would come over here and be like, what do you mean you just bury your knowledge in the ground? All of your
Right.
generational power and wealth, you just bury it in the ground for the worms to eat? That's crazy. They would think that you were just the ultimate disgrace to like your ancestors. So it started that way. And I think they eventually narrowed it down to just consuming the brain, that if you ate brain, that there was proteins in it. It's not necessarily like a virus or like a bacteria or anything like the disease exists because of proteins. And we don't really have any like effective way of dealing with that particular type of sickness. It's like a human version of mad cow disease. So because of that, Kuru was like discovered as here's the reason why you don't become a cannibal. So in defense of cannibalism, as long as you don't eat the brain, there's really no downside aside from the moral and ethical and psychological, associations that go with it.
Well, okay, that was a pretty good advertisement. Thank you, Thomas.
We do have cannibal packs in the store, so I feel like I at least need to promote them a little bit. It's just a fork and a knife.
I mean,
really nice.
There was a video about this a couple of years ago that came out from the SciShow, which is a pretty it's probably like the most mainstream cannibal advocacy video I've ever seen from Skillshare, with this freaking dude right here who looks like the Black Power Ranger from the movie, not the series. And he talks all about cannibalism and how cannibalism, you saw the title, it said cannibalism, the health benefits of cannibalism right there. Is that like the weirdest title for a video? Cannibalism healthy? And then there's a whole thing here that's like, well, humans have been doing it for a long time. It was part of the original paleo diet. Don't ever let anyone tell you different. If you want to be trad, being a trad wife means eating grandma. Apparently, being a traditional male. If someone says I'm a traditional male, you have to be like, oh, are you a cannibal then? Is that part of your religion? Up to 10% of the protein people ate were other people that ate protein. Like that's kind of a weird factoid that I didn't want. But yeah, I don't know. There was another thing I wanted to say about that. Oh yeah, if you look at Papua New Guinea, the Kuru disease started, and it's kind of interesting when you look at Papua New Guinea because they have really advanced sciences at some point in history that had awareness of the Sirius constellation B star, which we think requires telescopes to observe, and they use a hexadecimal number system, which is very advanced. So unless they were like chilling with Sumerians, which genetically it doesn't show, but it's possible, then it's probable that Papua New Guinea was at some point hyper advanced, beyond advanced in ways that we can fathom today. And some of the stories are that Spanish and Portuguese, when they go to a new conquering place, actually Sephardic Jews did this as well. When they went to a new place that they were going to be part of the slave trade or they were going to colonize, they would build an island. They would along the coast drop off a bunch of pigs. And it's against Muslim and Jewish religion to eat pigs, but the people you're conquering, you could have eat pigs. And so they're spreading a disease, a parasite that's like a brain worm that makes, like RFK had from the pork's bologna sandwiches. And the other thing is cannibalism, because cannibalism can cause, like you said, Kuru from eating parts of the brain. And we see this developing all over the world. There are certainly some weird dudes in Austria and Germany who've been locking people in their basements and eating them. John Wayne Gacy seemed to had the shakes. I'm not sure if we can diagnose it with Kuru, but Jeffrey Dahmer similarly. I mean, they just seem like they're strange people to begin with, but there's something there. Haiti has a lot of cases of cannibalism, not just the Clintons. I mean, not saying they had it. Just
while you have Papua New Guinea up on the screen too, and we're talking about cannibalism, I feel like I'm obligated to mention that this is where Michael Rockefeller disappeared from, was when he was in Papua New Guinea. And on top of that, the connection between the Michael C. Rockefeller wing of the Museum of Art, which was run by the husband of the lady that made that Jeffrey Dahmer artwork, like the one that one of the Podestas had hanging up in one of these magazine articles, where it's got a person kind of like arched over backwards, made out of gold. This is based on this old medieval like archetype that they would usually illustrate and paint. And it was basically about someone going into like a schizophrenic or like a nervous fit, and their body would kind of invert. And her name was Louise Bourgeois or Louise Bourgeoisie or something. Yeah, it's this one right here. So there's rumors that are like 50-50. I'm totally on the fence. But there's rumors that this artwork was a combination of not just those medieval drawings, but also because this is the pose that some of Dahmer's victims were found in, and that this wasn't even known, like wide known at the time, and she was literally making this artwork at the same time. So there's a direct connection between her and Jeffrey Dahmer and Michael Rockefeller. So that was interesting on this topic.
Wow. Did they find? I didn't know they found Dahmer's victims. I thought they were all dead.
They found some of them, but yeah, for the most part, they were all melted down.
That's
but
what
there was a barrel, and some of them were alive, right? Like,
yeah, and some of them were in the fridge. But I didn't think they found any.
There's little some here and there.
Okay. So yeah, so just I wanted to throw this up first, but we covered some of it. But just for those who don't know what Kuru is, so I found I put a little write-up together here. So Kuru is a rare, incurable, and fatal neurological disease caused by infectious proteins called prions, which are primarily transmitted through cannibalism, particularly by the consumption of infected human brain tissue. It is also called the laughing sickness because it can cause one to abnormally burst into laughter. So yeah, like we talked about, Kuru was formerly common among a group of people called the Four People of Papua New Guinea, located in the Eastern Highlands province, and it was spread among the Four People through funerary cannibalism, where deceased family members were cooked and eaten, which was thought to free the spirit of the dead, and like Paranoid said, to possibly gain that knowledge, right? So yeah, the women and children would typically eat the brain, where the most infectious prions were most concentrated, so they would commonly be affected the most. Yeah, so I learned about this just the other day, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then there's obviously in May of 2021, actress and QAnon follower Kirsten Weldon claimed Hillary Clinton had already died from Kuru, and she also said people like Angela Merkel, Clinton's former campaign manager John Podesta, James Comey of the FBI, and former Clinton aide Huma Abedin, among other people.
The wife of Anthony Weiner.
I mean, what crazy conspiracy theories that we've dug up on the internet, right? It's just completely, I mean, obviously no one believes any of this nonsense people advertising on YouTube.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's interesting.
We advocate against this kind of weird conspiracy. What's up
with this stuff?
Frankly.
Yeah, what a weird thought that people have. I mean, let me just say really quickly, I want to jump in for a second. So something they bring up about this, because exactly like Tom just said, that, well, first off, Jordan brought up the prion issue comes from eating other proteins. So your system gets confused in the folding process when it gets in contact with other folding proteins, and it misfolds, right? And this happens not just because people are wild cannibals. I want to bring this up also from the Smithsonian that, let's see, Cannibalism in Jamestown, Europe's Hypocritical History of Cannibalism. This is a really fascinating article. This is another really fascinating article talking about how there was cannibalism in Jamestown allegedly because of desperation. But like, how much meat's on a 14-year-old girl? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But seriously, I think this is a little bit more than just out of desperation. I mean, maybe this is a desperate apologist. But Europe's Hypocritical History of Cannibalism, from prehistory to present, with many episodes in between, the region is a surprisingly meaty. The pun is just too much. History of humans eating humans. You know, I'm not just talking about Mary of Bath, or, you know, the amount of skulls that we found in churches, you know, the entire Christian communities that didn't get along with other Christian communities. They would eat them and make bones into churches for them. There's Dracula stories in Transylvania from the Vinci place where the Tartarian tablets come from. The Neanderthals to extract marrow from brains. I mean, the more you look into it, cannibalism is a major part of history, and it's a major part of the aristocracy. All sorts of elite were eating human flesh. Okay, now let's go back for a second. This doesn't spread just from breathing. You know, there's not like a contagious disease, because you have to actually get the blood with proteins from the brain in you so that you would have misfolded proteins. But this doesn't affect everybody. And this is one of the examples they figured out, was when they finally stopped the 4A practice in the 1950s, there were totally healthy people. Some of these people who had been eating brains all their life, like, hey, I feel fine. And they looked into it and they figured out that there was actually epigenetic evolution that had taken place, where there had been genetic changes that made them more probably resistant to prion disease. So let me just clear that up for you. There are certain people who have been eating brains generationally for so long that they're less affected by the potential for prion disease. There are some people out there, not just from Papua New Guinea, right? Let me go back to that European article from Smithsonian. Not just from Papua New Guinea, who are so used to cannibalism, it's 50,000 years of cannibalism in Europe right here, that they're able to do this without having prion disease. Okay, just wanted to clear that up.
Well, and I don't want to leave the Middle East out either. So I posted a link. So I've got a quote.
How
that's
socially conscious of you.
So yeah, again, like one of the most fascinating parts of this is that it truly spans all times and cultural periods and continents. Like every single continent has a version of this. So this is just a guy. So Abd al-Latif al-Baghdadi, and he was writing about an actual event where like people were starving because of I guess there was just like no crops for like a few different years, and they go through this different event, and eventually some people go so far into cannibalism that he mentions like stores keeping like just canned human meat on the shelves because that was the only thing that they had, and it became commercialized. But he also mentions at the end of some of these recollections on Egypt that once this ended, they realized that it wasn't just the poor. There were also very elite, like very rich and wealthy people that were also engaging in this cannibalism, and in fact continued to do so even after it was no longer like a very tragic necessity. I think it lasted for like 4 years. And after this ended, he just said it was like notable how like these elite families, that they not only participated during these droughts, but they also continued to practice afterwards. And this is in the 1100s.
Oof. Fun stuff. You know, actually, one of the first cultures, because cannibalism wasn't rightly banned in a lot of countries for the aristocracy. Obviously, it was in the 1950s that they finally banned it in Papua New Guinea. But you know, one of the first countries to ban cannibalism, I'll give you a clue. I just made a video about this country.
Russia?
Yeah, that's right. Soviet Union, because there was the Nazino tragedy, there was the starvation in Moscow in World War II, and people went back to doing what they'd always done, eating their families, eating random street kids, etc. And so they put up posters everywhere saying, not only is it illegal, not only is it immoral, it is barbaric. It is barbaric to eat your children. So they actually were one of the first countries in the world to make laws forbidding cannibalism. And that happened when? The 1920s and 40s, like sometime in the 30s, I think, to the 40s.
How much of that, though, do you think it was just because they realized that if they made it illegal, they would have that extra amount of power over people, knowing that someone continuing this practice, and now they have like a legal justification to seize their assets or make them work for the state?
I mean, you gotta wonder, because like, what do you think about what do you think, Jordan?
What was the question?
Do you think that Russia essentially banned cannibalism not for moral or ethical reasons, but because it gave them the state extra leverage on people, knowing that it was already a widely accepted practice?
Well, I mean, if it was already a widely accepted practice, then I would lean to think like it's very possible that they did it for other reasons.
I think that there might have been, just from my recent zeitgeist exploration of the Soviet Union, that they were thinking that nature was barbaric in so many ways and that they should come up with new solutions to nature itself, right? Like they were trying to my video recently is about how they're trying to ban marriage because of feminism and ban families because of ableism. They wanted everyone to be raised by the state and they wanted to provide them all with social, medical, and physiological care, food, and everything else. So they were looking at these babies and these orphans as units of labor in the labor republic. And they were thinking, okay, all of the problems in nature can be overcome. So we can overcome cannibalism. I mean, there are a lot of promotions of vegetarianism in socialist countries. The Reich was, Hitler was a vegetarian, like he pushed for this idea as well. I think there might be something about the devil thinking they're more right than God, maybe, and they're thinking we can just replace nature generally.
I'm in favor. Because I assume that there's always going to be, I can't remember the name of the 70s movie, but like where they're basically just regrowing ecosystems in space. Like, so they got all the trees and all the different
Silent Runnings.
You would want. What was that?
Silent Runnings.
Silent Runnings is exactly what it was. In Silent Runnings, where they've just moved like all the ecosystems off of the planet, but essentially everyone's just eating like these little cubes of like sort of flavorless protein. And they sort of, I remember there's this one scene, which I don't think it's sci-fi. And there's a scene and this one guy is trying to advocate for like, here's why we care about farming and here's why we want to grow like our own organic food out here in space and preserve like all this food. And the rest of the crew members are like, you mean like food that comes from dirt? And we're all just like laughing about it. And seriously, it feels like such like they were just so far into the future that they're like, you're still eating food that came from dirt, and they've evolved so far beyond that. And I think there's almost like a binary way of thinking that once you fully embraced one of either of those sides, it's like ride or die.
I like the idea that Cool Runnings is the prequel to Silent Runnings. I think there's something to that. There might be.
Great comment, guys. Love it. All right, what do you want to get into now? Should we start getting into? So we've talked about the Kuru a bit and the cannibalism.
Well, I'll go into the cannibalism a little bit more.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's hear it.
So, ultimately, cannibalism is just a more specific version of generalized blood magic. And blood magic in general kind of states that you can extract power, knowledge, magical abilities. You can extract some sort of a quantifiable ability from blood, right? Cannibalism kind of takes that up to like another notch, and it also adds an extra level of taboo. And it also kind of adds like a nutritional value to it. Again, in defense of cannibalism, it adds like actual protein, especially if you're not eating the brain, you're just eating like muscle. Anyways, there are like potential real benefits from one angle of it when you get into like blood and vampirism, like consuming just blood and not any like flesh and stuff. There is a something called medical vampirism, which once you've done that too much, you actually like you start adjusting to I think like I'm gonna make some stuff up, but you start adjusting for like the higher salinity or like just the difference in the diet. And now you can actually become somewhat dependent on that. Yeah, this is right here, clinical vampirism. So you actually like start to become like change your actual digestive process as your body updates to this. So like there are historical references that go way back, like farther beyond human documented history, that basically have always been embracing blood magic, specifically consuming, putting it on you. Either it's an animal or it's a human. And this is just like, we don't even really know the origin of when this particularly started.
But, it was really big in the 19th century. I mean, obviously, the elite have been doing this forever, but medical cannibalism, consumption of parts of the body dead or alive to treat or prevent diseases was, you can see in 18th century Abarella used for storing mumia, right? And then there was the practice of melanated man. You know about melanated man, Jordan? Have you heard of that?
No. Nope.
This is a fun one. So what you do is you mellify a man, and what that means is before someone dies, you feed them nothing but honey. and you feed them honey for months. And
Oh,
eventually the blood and the brains and the gut, everything is filled with honey until honey like kills
What?
you essentially. But honey is this thing that lasts forever. You can really find honey in ancient Egypt that's thousands of years old and still edible because it never goes bad. Right. So if preserved correctly, so it's a preservative. And so you can preserve a body. A mellified man will look like a regular man for far longer
For what
than a normal
purpose?
mummy. Well, I
To
mean,
have
if you
one of those
believe
crazy
that
funerals?
if you needed to have your body preserved so that in the afterlife, eventually your spirit, when it was done with its cycle in the afterlife, could return back to its body, the body would still be there for it. See, they believe that bodies that were destroyed or burnt, that there was no place for that body to go except for into a soulless vessel, right? So you either have a body waiting for you, or you need somebody else's body, or you hope that someday they create some sort of, bunch of robots or something that you can put your body into.
It was just like pre-Disney cryogenics, right? It's the same concept.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's pretty fair. I think cryogenics is this idea as well, that someday there'll be a way for you to live again, and you need your body to do that. That's basically the idea. And some of it was for self-sacrifice. Usually you could present your body for the elite. Let's not talk about bees. Oh, I did it. I did it.
I love it. I love it.
Dang.
Wait,
you guys-
what am I missing?
Oh,
we did
just
an episode. Good.
we were just talking about doing shows and stuff, and Andreas was like, "Oh, I don't want to stay up too late," and I was like, "Well, we can do a short show, and we won't go off topic like last time talking about bees and shit."
But
Bees are
technically,
always
it's
on
not
topic, though. Bees are so important. I think we should talk about bees right now.
Fuck's sakes, boys! I gotta keep an eye on you guys. Okay, let's
The
get
queen-
back to the
the queen bee in the hive mind. But yeah, okay, all right, fair enough. Yeah, but the melanated man is important, like for the whole idea.
That's crazy though. Yeah, never heard of that. Never heard of that.
Yeah, and medical cannibalism. The reason I brought it up was the sarcophagus juice. There was a recent, I think this was just about 2018, archaeologists opened a 2,000-year-old black granite sarcophagus in Alexandria, Egypt. They found 3 skeletons and a significant amount of reddish sewage water, or rather sarcophagus juice. This liquid, which has been humorously dubbed the sarcophagus juice, is believed to have been seeped in the sarcophagus from a nearby building, leading a mixing of decaying organic matter and waste. And they sold it online to an elite family that I'm not going to bring up here for other reasons. But yeah, for lots of money, And I wonder,
do they have a shield that's a certain primary color?
I don't want to
They
say,
might,
but you know what? Business Insider, no, you can't drink the mystery liquid from the 2,000-year-old sarcophagus juice. You know why? 'Cause somebody else can. That's the
Well, and not just that, but there's been so many stories, even as recent as like 19th, 20th century, and I'm sure 21st too, of pills that were made from like the ground up remains of mummies, and that they had some kind of medicinal benefit, and that was kind of all the rage in the early 20th century for sure.
Did you see this petition? Let people drink the red liquid from the dark sarcophagus juice. Signed for 36, almost 37.
So do we know that they
people.
saved the juice though?
Dude, they sold it at auction. Somebody got it, and that was the end of
somebody's
that.
got it. Oh, well, what they can drink it then? They can
Let
do
the
whatever they
people want it though. They wanted it to be shared. They want to drink it. Yeah.
I firmly believe that they should be able to drink the juice, but you don't wheeze the juice.
The further plan.
You don't wheeze it?
You don't wheeze the juice.
We need to drink the red liquid from the cursed dark sarcophagus in the form of some sort of carbonated energy drink so we can assume its powers and finally die. That's the issue. Sign petition. All right, I'm signing right now. I'll do that later. But yeah. So sarcophagus juice. Point is that mummy cannibalism or medical cannibalism, pretty famous into the 1950s and in the 1600s, and bloodbaths, and There was even, brain used as gum for people to chew on. There's bone marrow.
Also, there's like
Shakespeare.
this like moral fabric question too, and like the social taboo. And this is interesting to me because if you're in a plane crash, like alone, right, or like some of the famous
The
ones
Donner
where people
Party.
get stranded. Donner Parties also like has some other connotations to it, but like the plane crash and alone, it does seem that collectively the world, or at least mass majority of society, agrees that if you're stranded for a certain amount of time in a place where you're guaranteed to not find anything else and someone's
Or
dying
super
anyway, or
hungry.
they already died, if you're just super hungry,
Moby Dick.
socially you do get a pass. Like you don't get that taboo, or the fact that you go through it and everyone ends up knowing about it afterwards. Like you've earned almost like a level of respect that you've gone through that. So it's not like so black and white that if you've ever eaten a person, you are now a weird like outsider of society. There's always like these weird extremes, and I guess the ultimate point is that Kuru is so incredibly interesting because this does seem like a self-correcting trait, and then nature always finds a way, like Andreas was saying, is like, all right, well then we're just going to make a human that has this this trait where like you aren't affected by Kuru, you're resistant to it. And again, just speaking on behalf of cannibalism, just so we've got like a devil's advocate here, it seems like a trait that you would want to have. Evolutionarily speaking, like if you never had to consume a human in your entire life, like, or human brain in your entire life, and none of your grandkids, ideally they wouldn't, but if they ever had to, wouldn't you at least want a trait that would make sure that they don't also catch some kind of fatal disease that ends the entire bloodline? So ultimately, it is a desirable trait to have that. And if you could selectively breed, or just dip into that genetic pool real quick, just send one like inbred sort of royal and just to Papua New Guinea, like a Michael Rockefeller, and just grab a little chunk of that DNA and come back, and now perhaps have that as part of you like your genetic DNA. So maybe the royals at some point figured out a way to just like collect that as part of their selective breeding.
Eat Eric Roberts. We have to eat Eric Roberts. I mean, yeah, I think the thing is what you're saying has to do with this idea of out of desperation, and maybe the elite were desperate enough to become cannibals. But to me, it seems a little different because
what you're
really saying is a different cast of
basically
merges.
that they had always been doing it, and then like
yeah, exactly.
they
and
used starvation as a cover to normalize it, and then keep doing it.
Yeah, you know the story of Moby Dick, right? Like the whale and everything. Like the cannibal.
Can you start from page 1? Just remind me the whole thing.
Just call me Ishmael. Why don't you?
Chat GP that shit for me.
Okay, I mean, we're not going to do the book. It's actually, I want to talk about like the actual true story, because I don't even, because like it's about, is cannibalism in the book? Did they talk about that in the book? I don't even remember if that's like a thing that Herman Melville gets into. But you got like
ChatGPT. Did they talk about cannibalism? And I don't actually have that hooked up right now.
I'm kind of curious now.
You got it.
Does Moby Dick the book talk about cannibalism?
Or say reference?
Yeah, it talks about his friend openly being a cannibal throughout the book. I mean, someone have to remind me at some point. I'm gonna have to read. It's been a minute. Here's the deal, though. True story. So Nantucket, which I'm sure all of you New English CIA deep state folks have been to Nantucket, and you know what it's like there. There was a boat called the Essex, and they're sailing around, and they have this whole issue where they get hit by a whale that's probably trying to mate with the boat. And who knows for sure, but they end up getting crashed off their boat, and they can go west or they can go east. And like, I think west was the Marquesas Islands, which were really close. It was like 100 miles or something like that. It was going to be like pretty easy to get to. And the Marquesas Islands had fertile soil, lots of food there. There was like tribes there, but that was the problem. They were a white man, New Englishmen. They thought they were so much better than the subhuman. They thought they were like civilized, and they were worried when they got there that there would be cannibals. Now, there weren't any cannibals in the Marquesas, not actually historically, but they did eat little monkeys. And for some reason, I think sailors had this story that the monkeys were men or that something like that. So they were worried that there might be cannibalism. when they got to that island. So they decided not to go west. They're like, okay, we could go 100 miles, but let's go thousands of miles east. We'll go east. Who knows what we'll find? But we've heard some sailors say that there are some islands that direction at some point. And they eventually find this island where birds are mating. You know, like it's a Henderson Island that's filled with mostly bird shit. It's not a lot of birds. There's some birds that land. It was like maybe like 3 seagulls or something that they see there because it's the wrong time of year. And so they end up all being, you know, they can't eat the calcified bird crap on the island. They're going to die. That's it. Basically they realize, okay, we really screwed up. We used up all of our food. We've been drinking our own urine for days and there's not a lot left of us. And somebody died. And when that person died, you know, the crew decided to eat the guy. They ate the dead body. But the problem was then they were still hungry, you know. They weren't done. And so Moby Dick...
Was the guy Chinese? Is that what the problem was?
No, it wasn't that. Maybe he could have been. That's pretty funny. But no, it was just that they were so hungry. So there was a dude who was on the boat who was a kid. He was like 14, and he was the captain's nephew or like son-in-law or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like his wife's nephew or something like that. And he was in charge of protecting this kid. But they decided what they would do is they were going to draw straws on who they were going to eat. And 14-year-old nephew boy gets the shortest straw. And so the captain's like, dude, I can like stop this from happening because I'm the captain. And he's got a gun. He's like, I can keep them away from you and kill all these other guys, basically, if they, you know, because if they're coming at you. And the kid's like, no, it's good. You know, like I'm willing to sacrifice myself. Like I'm a stiff upper lip kind of guy, like New English kid. And so he had to kill his own nephew. And then they all ate the nephew on the boat. And I always think about that, you know, way too often, probably more than never, at least, because it's interesting that they went so far trying to avoid something that didn't even exist, that they thought like there might be cannibals at this little close island that they would have been fine at. And then by trying to avoid finding cannibals, you know, they became cannibals. Ooh, you know, like,
sounds like a great book, man. All right,
so I mean, another tick for pro cannibalism because it sounds like they survived from the cannibalism. No.
Yeah, for sure. And they lived happily ever after. I forgot to mention that part of the book.
Yeah.
You know, like,
oh, damn. Okay. Well,
I mean, like, they got back.
I mean, like, obviously, like, history has proven, and stories like this have proven where cannibalism has been required. I mean,
well, at very least justified. Justified. You gotta imagine that, like, couldn't you have gone fishing? Was there anything they could have done? Like, you know what, like they like to do. You know what, like the boat had on it. What were they eating on the boat? They weren't eating fish. They were eating turtles.
Oh, so, dude, why'd you have to say that? That's not good.
No, I'm not even done. It gets so much worse.
Oh, God.
Because, like, these turtles are like 200 years old. You know this. Turtles live forever.
Dude.
And they get these big turtles. These are like, you know, they're like 6 feet. They're these like 2-meter shells, these huge freaking turtles. And what they would do is they would stack them. They would get them inside of in the boat, and they would stack turtle on top of turtles all the way down, right? There'd just be like 12 turtles inside of this boat. And every time they got hungry, they would pull, and these turtles would be alive, like stacked on top of each other for months at a time. And then like they would take one turtle, and then the other turtle below would just be waiting to die. And then it'd just be waiting to die. And they'd just take the turtle out and they'd make it into turtle soup, and they would eat these turtles. So to me, like, I gotta wonder, like, how much worse is, you know, eating your 14-year-old nephew than murdering these like turtles in the most horrible ways. Like they're in a dungeon in a basement of a ship, like waiting to die for months.
And to tack on top of that, I am no expert in eating turtles, but I'm going to assume that if you were to want to eat a turtle, it wouldn't be a 200-year-old turtle. That doesn't sound like the one you'd want, although I could be totally wrong.
You don't want to eat any turtle, okay? So
I imagine the meat's just as good though, right?
Because I feel like dude, I feel like turtle soup was on the menu on the Titanic.
Dude, yeah, okay.
Like this was
and they went down.
Well, right. Well, is that what it was? It was
yeah,
specifically. But I mean, like escargot, right? Escargot is still seen, and here's a better example,
I'm
maybe.
cool with escargot, dog.
Here's another example. Then I think
Keep the turtles out
if
of
you
it. That's all I'm saying.
you can get octopus at sushi restaurants or in like seafood salads, right, all day long.
Yeah.
And I would argue an octopus is far smarter and more coherent than any turtle that ever lived.
Dude,
I don't know. A
No
turtle that's
way.
200 years old, though.
turtles
that's the
are
thing.
the best. They're the wisest, man. Come
I
on.
don't know, man. I don't
ChatGPT.
think that time has anything to do with it. A 200-year-old mosquito doesn't make it any better than like a 10-year-old cat.
I don't know, man. The more experience you have, the more, I mean, I wouldn't want to eat like someone's grandma. Like, I feel like that's pretty mean. Maybe the difference, though, with the turtle is, according to ChatGPT, just checked it out, they would probably have a stronger, gamier flavor, and
Oh,
they might have a more delicate fat distribution than the younger turtle. And
I'm
there'd be
saying, like, Jordan, you're offended, but I'm saying, man, like this was
dude,
literally
okay, just for those who
like
don't
a
realize it, I have 3 turtles. I have 2 tortoises and a turtle.
it's like we're talking about eating his
love-
son.
And I love turtles, okay?
You were totally fine with us eating the Rothschilds on Papua
First-
New Guinea, but once we talk about turtles, that's the
First,
it was
that's
rock
where humanity
Dude,
goes.
first
Potato,
you,
tomato.
you troll me at the
My
start
bad.
of the show, and now you guys are both just trolling the hell out of me, and I'm just dying. I can't believe
I don't know. I gotta agree though. Like I've had years to process the thought, but when I first heard about because I used to be a kid, I was like, oh, it'd be kind of interesting to be on on the Essex. It'd be cool to be like a Nantucket. I've been in Nantucket. I always thought, wow, it'd be kind of interesting to be like a sailor, to go around, on a boat. Like that seems kind of interesting. But when you find out what they did to life everywhere and how they treated turtle, like the turtle thing really gets you, because it's so freaking brutal on every level. And it's interesting to me what nature is, because we'll say, oh, it's so
turtle is
different than
smarter
we
than
treat
a
a
goddamn
person.
octopus. All right.
I get it. I
Smarter than a Democrat.
get, and I agree. I actually agree that like I would never want any turtle to go through any of that. And there's so many better sources of
I'm glad we
protein.
all
All right,
agree.
I'll say that.
Like
But
your nephew.
also relatively.
Also,
Here's the also relatively. I
also.
feel that like, dude, every single day, the combination of all the marine traffic, maybe just the military, if you include industrial and commercial, there's probably 10 times as many turtles absolutely slaughtered for absolutely no reason compared to, like survival. Like if they're literally dying and you need to survive, I give them the pass, even if they ate fucking 20 different, even if they ate 20 different 200-year-old turtles, that's nothing compared to the ones that are just like, just thrown away for no reason because they were in the path of like a liner. So context. I think context is needed a little bit.
I think I need a therapist right now is what's needed.
Aw,
But
poor boy.
okay, I could get on board with that. Yeah.
There's plenty of turtles out there, dude. Have you ever actually seen the hatching? Like,
yeah, I used to watch it after school.
Dude, I don't care how many
there
there are. I don't want to see one die.
You ever been bit by a giant turtle? One time it got me by the arm in Peru. Yeah, dude,
Was
swimming
it
in the
a
ocean.
snapping turtle?
No, thank God, that would have been so bad.
That
But it
would've,
snapped.
Oof.
But yeah,
Jesus.
no, it was just a big turtle, but it hurt my arm pretty bad, bro. I could have broken my arm. So
Well,
you know,
I grew up
also-
in South Florida, and that was one of the biggest things was like all the baby sea turtles, and businesses would have to turn off all the lights. Like it was mandated by government, but like sometimes they wouldn't. Sometimes a bar somewhere would
Like at
forget to
night?
turn off the neon, and the turtles would get like all turned around and like make their way in the middle of the streets and stuff. Like it became like a very constant thing. And also, dude, tourists were notorious for walking down the beach and seeing like a turtle nest and like, let me go get a picture. Let me go and like, and sometimes they're not all like nicely packed inside one spot.
No.
You might like step on one on the way to it. So like,
Dude,
that was always
I think
the
it's
thing.
like 1 out of 8 turtles make it to the sea, and then like
But that's
1
why
out of
there's so
100
many.
make it-
There's so
there's
many
like
because
thousands. Yeah.
so many
That can't
things
be
can go
true. That can't
wrong.
Yeah, but so many things can go right with the turtle soup. Am I right? Okay, so then the siege of Maara, So this is like, well, I mean, cannibalism, right? So like justification of murdering turtles to me is similar to murdering Muslims. They had this whole thing. The Christian crusaders, when they got done with the Muslims, they ate them. 1098, right? One of the major stories that the Muslims were eaten. After the siege, some of the starving crusaders resorted to cannibalism, feeding the body of Muslims. The fact is not seriously in doubt. as it is acknowledged by nearly a dozen Christian chronicles written during the 20 years after the Crusade, all of which are based on at least some degree of eyewitness accounts. The Crusaders' cannibals briefly mentioned in an Arab source, which explains it as a due to hunger, racked by dearth. There is conflicting evidence on what exactly and why the cannibalism happened. Some states they were eaten during the siege. Others state that it happened after the city had been conquered. I think that's the more accurate thing, that they say it was out of desperation, but I imagine it was probably certain elites who've always been cannibals just did what they do. You know, like, have you ever seen that movie, The Mask of Zorro, with Anthony Hopkins, and he's got that General Custard guy?
I used to love it. I used to love the pecker.
He's eating the pickled friend. He's eating his freaking friend. Zorro sees this blonde dude that's like, he eats the pieces of his enemy. And what does he say in that scene? He talks about how Native Americans did it. Bro, you got to remember the cannibal scene in Mask of Zorro.
I'm gonna have to rewatch that. That was a good one. Antonio Banderas and all that. Oh yeah. Also, just to I can't believe I googled it because I shouldn't have. But just to correct your, I wish you were right, but you're wrong. But apparently, only 1 in 1,000 sea turtle hatchlings survive to adulthood.
That's right. Didn't I say that? What did I say?
1 in 8. You were being very.
No, I said 1 in 8 makes it to the ocean, and 1 in I think it might have said 1 in 100 makes it to sea. But it's 1 in 1,000 that makes it to, you know, I mean, because 200 years is a long time, bro. Like, what do you expect? Not all of them are going to make it, but they do get to do it every year. So
here's another one too, that in the Isle of Crete, which were the Minoans, I believe, or like Minoan culture, which is where you get the Minotaur and the Labyrinth and all these stories were based on perhaps some like accurate retellings that happen here. But this is an article that I've got the whole version of, that I used to have a subscription to this. But basically, they're talking about in 1979, not only did they find this little sacrificial altar that sounds like it came straight out of a 1970s like music video, or like a 70s album cover for like a metal band, but they found like a ritualistic princess holding this huge dagger with all these ornate carvings, and then a kid and like an older man, all kind of slaughtered together. And on the kid's bones, they found knife carvings, but the knife carvings indicated some kind of like a filleting. Like it wasn't like a torture thing, and it wasn't just a altar like sacrimonious thing. It was just straight up filleting him in forms of like patterns that reflect cannibalism. And that this was not just a necessity, and it wasn't just like a flippant sort of taboo thing to do, that this was like a ritualistic and we're talking about culture now that predates ancient Greece even, right? Like the Minoan culture. So that the fact that people were like using this in magical practices, in addition to all the other contexts we've talked about so far, this is more akin to, I think, the accusations that get made of like politicians and celebrities in 2025. It kind of links way closer to this version, this very specific niche version of cannibalism for magical purposes.
Well, if it's for magic, I mean, could do anything, man.
And the whole origin of the labyrinth is that they were sending their kids into this labyrinth to be consumed essentially by the Minotaur.
Here's the scene in Mask of Zorro where Captain Love drinks Alejandro's brother, right? So he's the blonde dude. Yeah, and he shows him the drink he has, and he asks him if he wants to have a sip of it. And he has the cup, and he shows him, you know, how there it is right there.
Right.
And his brother's in the thing. So it's like a historical thing, and he drinks some of his own brother, you know?
I want to mention too that I feel that part of how, like, my affinity towards the topic of not cannibalism, the act, but the topic of cannibalism, is probably because growing up Roman Catholic and the whole concept of transubstantiation, that you're literally eating the body and blood. And every time I would ask as a little kid, it's like, is this really, like, come on, tell me, is this really the body of God? Is this really his blood? And if you're a real Catholic, you have to say, yeah, if you're Roman Catholic. So like, I grew up with this weird concept of like, sometimes cannibalism is okay as long as it's the Son of God, who was also a human being. Like you can eat a human being's body and blood as long as they're divine. So like there's always this weird little loophole.
Well, there's loopholes for everything, right? So yeah, that's crazy. What else do you guys want to get into, man? Do you guys want to move on to some?
You're done with cannibalism? I could think of so many examples I wanted to bring up of cannibalism, because it's like a lot of the reasons are starvation based that we use as excuses for the commoners to become aware of it. Like normal people hear about it whenever there's, a famine, but the people in charge are always doing it. That's the thing. It seems like a huge number of Mayflower stock people or serial killers that are into cannibalism, right? That's like a genetic thing that they've shown recently. You're going to say something, Thomas? Sorry.
Well, how many people go missing and unaccounted for every single year? Like they're going somewhere, and this does make. I mean, with my thickest version of like a tinfoil hat firmly on my head, this is one explanation for where they're all going. Like they're just being turned into Soylent Green in various forms, and it's probably closer to like high ticket sort of dinners, like private event style dinners. But it could literally be going anywhere. It could be going to dog food. Like I wouldn't like the way that you hear the stories, which might just be CIA propaganda, but of like the Chinese treating the Uyghurs, right? And like it wouldn't be out of character.
Or the way people in Arizona treat organ donors. Keep going.
What's the context on that?
Oh, come on! Haven't you seen
They turn them into dog food?
Cronenberg did a documentary on this, and there was and that's another thing.
Wait,
I don't know. It's like, stop trying to make dog food sound so delicious, okay? I don't think everybody understands what you're getting at there. I think it's mostly expensive stuff. It's kings and popes, like King Francis I carried mumia powder for curing of ailments. Queen Elizabeth used tinctures made from human remains. King Charles II, before they cut his head off, had something called the King's Drops, which were, powdered and tinctures made from human skulls, right? So I don't think it's just, I have a hard time believing it's in dog food necessarily, because generally speaking, you'd want that for your elites as much as possible. But go ahead, sir. I was gonna say.
Well, I wanna explore this idea too of like dogs, because if you look for two examples, dogs and horses, because if you look into the history of the United States, horse meat has basically been banned since forever, and at this point it's more of like a cultural affinity towards horses because they represent this part of like the American spirit. Like that's literally the reason why, and it's not necessarily banned outright. It's just that horses and any sort of like horse-based accessories are banned if it ultimately is supposed to be meant for any kind of consumption. So you're not allowed to make anything that turns horses into like a consumable product. Like there's nothing that stops you from buying a horse and killing and eating it, but culturally it's essentially illegal. Like it's everything
I've had chili made of horses at some point.
Inside the United States?
In the United States, yeah.
So this is only allowed by a private party that like owns their own horse. There's not allowed to be any form of an industrial or commercial component to this. And the point that I'm ultimately making is that one is maybe a little bit farther removed taboo, just because horses are not necessarily interacting with as much.
Just going to debunk you. So no active horse slaughterhouses since 2007. And the Congress has repeatedly defunded USDA inspections of horse slaughter plants, but meat can't. But without inspection, meat can't be sold for human consumption. So if they don't inspect the meat plants, then you can't do it. But it's not technically illegal. Just USDA refused. Congress has repeatedly defunded USDA inspections.
Okay, fair point. Regardless, this is ultimately based in a cultural taboo. The fact that horse meat in particular goes through extra red tape in order to prevent it from becoming widespread.
Is sometimes shipped from Mexico or Canada for slaughter, where the meat can be processed and inspected.
Send it over here and we'll kill it up and
the point being that horse meat, and then I think even to a bigger degree, dog meat is like this ultimate, and cat meat, I guess too. In your case, freaking turtle meat. I don't think turtles count. I think that, anyways. Dog and cats too, though, are just like cultural taboos, but in so many other countries, they're not really seen as that taboo in order to include it as part of your diet. In very specific areas, right? This is not like wide plays, but this is definitely like an accepted practice, and I feel that it's almost akin to the same level of taboo that straight up cannibalism would be at. It's just that cannibalism implies one extra step of murder, but if you find out that it wasn't murder and it was like grandma died, I was starving, we were on a plane, whatever the example is, there, like we already I think explained over the last hour that there are justifications both legally and ethically and socially that can give you an excuse for doing straight up cannibalism.
I think it's mostly an elitism thing. So like, you know, we talked about Mary of Bath, right? You're familiar with Mary of Bath, Jordan? You know about this lady? The blood bath?
I think so. Go on.
So she would take baths in blood, right? Like, and so she would like try to make her skin look nice by taking baths in blood and would drink blood. And eventually, because of the French Revolution, we started looking at elites differently, because it used to be that you looked at the elite as gods. And of course, eating a man would be similar to man eating an animal for a god, right? So it's completely acceptable. But at a certain point, we're looking at elite as being wrongfully placed people that are living off unacceptable privilege. And so we say, okay, well, why is it it's unfair? It's unfair that they get to eat something that we don't. And in fact, there's even an anti-bourgeoisie concept here. We don't want to be like the elite. The elite are sick, right? Like we shouldn't do anything the elite are doing. We shouldn't go to operas and we shouldn't drink blood anymore. You know, like Pope Innocent VIII, on his deathbed, he killed they had 4 boys killed and drained of their blood, 4 young boys, so that he could drink their blood.
I like the direction this is going, because I think this is the theme that is the most important to understand, is that historically cannibalism seems like it was practiced more by people that didn't have to do it. It was practiced by people that wanted. Like another really good example is that there's these rumors of the brazen bull, which is where King Phalaris apparently had this custom made bull that he could put small young people into, and the way that they would cook, the acoustics and the way that the steam would release from something cooking in this bull would actually reverberate and make it sound like a bull, kind of like roaring. And that his other name, or his nickname, was the infant eating tyrant. This is King Phalaris in like the 500 BC or something, or maybe it was year 500. But like again, there's these examples where that dude was not starving. He had enough money to make a custom oven just to prepare his very favorite meal, and he had a nickname historically of like doing this practice. And I think that this is sort of like, this is the archetype to keep in mind when cannibalism comes up. But like media and just like your history teachers and the Rockefeller education system, they make you think about Alone and the Donner Party, and maybe a little bit of like Jeffrey Dahmer once you start getting into like horror movies and stuff, right? But like those are kind of the 3 that usually come up in people's minds, and they're not thinking about like the kings and the queens and the royals that were just doing this for funsies.
And you know who else did this? There were times when commoners got to eat bodies. Who do you think that the commoners got to eat that socially it was allowed? Encouraged.
Like
heretics?
Close. Criminals. Heretics is a good example. So if you weren't allowed to have a Christian burial, let's say you were a criminal or you were a heretic and they burned you at the stake, they were roasting you, guess what they would do? I mean, even before the Christians, Scandinavians and Saxons into the Christian period, they would have people eat the criminal corpses. There would be medical feasts of criminal corpses. They would use the fats for balms and salves and everything else like that. And the average person was able to go, because they weren't allowed to bury them like a Christian. So they would actually, the executioners would sell fat and blood and other parts of these people because they were criminals. So, I mean, if you think about it today, like if a criminal was an organ donor or, you know, something like that, like it's a pretty similar idea that the average person would go to a hanging to get meat from these non-Christians who were looked at as subhuman.
I've got another pro cannibalism point to maybe make, or at least to open up.
Leave
the
the turtles out of it, man.
We're done with turtles, bro. Turtle. I would never eat turtle. It sounds disgusting, anyways. I don't like oceany.
Michelangelo or Donatello.
That's my favorite. No, I wouldn't do it. But so there was this. Have you ever heard of the flatworm experiment from the 1950s, 1960s?
Ooh.
Anyone? Bueller.
No, I don't think so.
Flatworm
So
experiment?
the flatworm experiments were I got some notes here because I've done super deep dives in this. 1959, it was a guy named James V. McConnell, and he basically came up with this idea that a very specific type of flatworm, that if he could kind of train it on a stimulus and then chop it up into pieces. I think one of the first ways they started this is that if you cut these in half, they actually can regrow into two different pieces. This is like one of the few types of worms that actually can do this. Like earthworms, I don't think you can do this with, even though like most kids kind of think that way. So these flatworms, you can cut it up into multiple pieces. And one of his experiments was training these on electric stimuli, and then basically cutting it into pieces and seeing if the individual pieces would remember all the stimuli. And it eventually evolved into him taking some of those pieces and feeding it to another flatworm that wasn't trained on the stimuli, and then him claiming that now this one that had never been trained and wasn't part of the one that was trained, but it consumed a piece of the part that it was trained, now it also had some of that memory. So this was a weird intersection, highly contested. People have tried to reproduce this, although I feel like it might be in one of these fringe areas that even if you found the results, it wouldn't get like published and advertised the same way that other studies would. But this was one of like the earliest 20th century justifications for like a science fiction version of cannibalism, because I mean the ultimate like extrapolation of that is that, well, if worms can do it, ...
Right.
Just popped in the popping up the F chat. I just figured some of these Adrenochrome conversations probably need an uncensored chat, so make sure you're in the F chat / Xirtus so you can say some things you don't feel like you can say on the Uber tuber. You know what I'm saying? Just I think it's an important point. It wasn't just starving peasants; it was particularly like well-to-do royals, and that there was definitely social justifications. If you looked at somebody with a different religion, or somebody that was a criminal, or anything like that, like you could definitely imagine that this is something that extended into pretty modern times. And I don't know if you really believe the elite for some reason stopped doing something that they've done for tens of thousands of years and generations. I mean, it's hard to imagine that some traditions ever die.
True that, man. True that.
You wanted to talk about Adrenochrome, though? That was the next thing you wanted to?
We can get into that. We can get into we can move on for a bit. Paranoid. What
I can talk about some Adrenochrome. And I think that it's basically, if you think that blood magic is silly, like I don't believe in witchcraft and I don't believe in religion, let's say you're an atheist, so you're like, I'm just going to discount blood magic for that reason. And then you're like, beyond starvation, I don't believe that there's any such thing as like inheriting power, because that's also kind of supernatural. So you shelve any advantages outside of blocking starvation away from cannibalism. But now with the Adrenochrome substance, there is a secular version of, okay, maybe there is something to this, because essentially epinephrine has been proven to have a very real result. And the thing that made epinephrine or adrenaline, the thing that makes that so interesting is because it was I think the first mammal sourced drugs that people started actually using widespread. Before adrenaline, pretty much every other drug was essentially derived from plants or mushrooms. None of it actually came from like a living, breathing animal. Maybe some from like fish. So once that happened, now all of a sudden you've got this byproduct, like a highly specialized byproduct that comes from adrenaline and epinephrine in the form of this Adrenochrome. So this substance now gives people that normally didn't care about supernatural, they don't believe in ghosts and witchcraft, and maybe they don't even believe in like any of the other like ethical and moral boundaries, but now there's like a secular substance that represents the exact same things that can be ascribed to like blood libel and to like all of the baggage that comes along with blood magic and cannibalism and vampirism. Now there's an actual like scientific substance we could extract out of any three of us right now because it's in our blood that represents all of those same things with none of the religious baggage.
Ooh, we got a super chat on F chat. Great show from RGZ. Very good.
Right
He's
on,
Adrenochrome, rich people in towns with big mansions drinking the young people's blood like Dracula. Yeah, totally made up stories that never happened. That's exactly what we're getting
Like
at here.
Society. I don't know if you the movie Society is
My favorite
it's
movie.
like a slightly adjacent version of that where they absorb the young people of the town in order to like make themselves younger and live longer. And they don't like literally consume them with their mouths. They consume them by sort of like melding into them.
I showed that to Tim Pool when I lived with him, and I don't know how he felt about anything ever after
What
that.
Society?
Yeah, I was like, oh, you got to see that movie, man.
It's such a required watching. Like what's that new horror movie that just came out with Alison Brie and like when she kisses her husband or whatever, they start to merge together. I think it might be called Together. And this has been getting like all these ratings, like 99% on Tomatoes and IMDb ratings. But like Society walked so that movie could run.
Oh, I love Society so much because Society didn't do nearly. Let me pull it up here. So Society trailer didn't do nearly as well in America for some reason. Because a movie about like elite people that exploit the lower classes. For some reason, Europeans just got this movie on a level that like normal people didn't get it, I guess. But it's really, I think this is definitely one of my favorite movies of all time. At very least, the ending is incredible. But the whole movie, really, if you love that kind of movie, if you like that sort of idiosyncratic, trying to be American movie that's clearly got something a little not American about it, but it pretends to be American.
This was an American movie, though, no?
It was shot in LA, but I think that a lot of the actors were, I mean, you had some seriously American actresses, right? Like in character, like some of the actors were just super LA people, but I'm pretty sure the movie was directed by a European. It's the cinematography and the direction of this film doesn't feel super American. I got to look into it more before I am sure about that. But it has like, there's some qualities to this movie. And then the final scenes where it all happens, it's like, it's full fan service for anything you ever wondered about what the elite were doing in the other room that you couldn't get into. Society, it just fulfills all of that void in your life. Something that's super important. You got to see it if you want to look into that.
Okay.
But a word that I would bring up, I just really quickly, we should go back into adrenochrome, but we didn't talk a lot about fat. I mentioned kind of like poor men's fat or like poor sinners fat. Poor sinners fat is kind of the translation, but Menschenfett is the German word, and I don't think there's
man fat.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an English page for this. Yeah, I guess okay. So they do have an English page in this that you can check out here called human fat. But it's totally was used as a medicine. I'm gonna see if I can translate the German page.
This has reminded me of a good example too.
Human lard in these little bottles. Look at these little health bottles filled with criminals' fat that they were selling on the black market, right? And then Fight Club is all about this in a lot of ways, about mentioned fat. But ointments, other fatty medicines. There was, animal fats, bear fats, viper fat, cat fat, vulture fat, marmot fat, but generally human fat. Johann Agricola described the extraction of human fat and its areas of application. And with healing magical meaning, it was called poor sinner fat because it usually came from executioners who sold the meat from the bodies of executed people. So a major rheumatism cure and arthritis cure attributed to human mention.
So
what was go ahead? Sorry, Jordan.
No, just like, so those vials of the fat, what do they eat the fat or they snort
you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. Some people injected fat. Some people would eat fat. Some people just rub the fat on their knuckles. But yeah, like different uses, and these little, they just snap the glass and you use the fat for all kinds of different purposes. There was
soap.
There was a trade name actually called Humanol, and I'm not even making that up. Humanol right there. Hold on, I just lost it for you. Humanol. There it is. Humanol, omitted human fat and sterile liquefied preparation for injection purposes used in surgical therapies in 1909 for scar treatment. So yeah, I mean,
I mean, just because they were using it doesn't mean it did jack shit, right? Like,
actually, so what's interesting about fat, right? Like they use like liposuction me up. Yeah, you can use fat for so many things, right? So like injecting fat into the knees, they use fat for stem cells. One of the things you can do is collect your own fat, freeze it, get stem cell from that you can inject in your knees or your shoulders for stem cell treatment when you're older, because it has DNA, and that DNA can actually change the DNA in your system because it revitalizes it with younger DNA. So there's a lot of truth to transhumanism.
Do you have a storage of like fat cells that you've been sampling
in Panama? Me? What are you talking about? Anyway,
I got another link on here too. So I've got some insider knowledge on this one. I can't find any documentation, but I trust me, bro. Like literally just trust me, bro. But here is there was a Wired article and a lot of other ones in 2008. There was this quote unquote hoax article about 2 German Air Force members that were facing court martials because they were making blood sausage out of their own blood and out of other people that were in their unit, and they were looking to they weren't just eating it themselves, but they were starting to like sell it. So it turned into like this human blood sausage operation. Now the 2008 version of this particular story is a hoax, like, and I believe that they kind of thoroughly prove, or at least it's been sufficiently sort of like downplayed as a hoax. But I absolutely know, and here's the don't trust me bro part for a fact, that in way earlier than that, I want to say it was in 2001 or 2002, because I remember that someone was getting court-martialed that was related to a U.S. Air Force base that I was at in 2002, and they were getting court-martialed for this exact thing. But it was just that it was one person that got addicted to like black pudding and to blood sausage while they were deployed to Germany, and when they came back to the U.S. and they were staying on actual USA, AF territory, once they were staying in base housing, they were like making their own blood sausage from their own blood and then consuming it themselves. And someone found out about that, and they ultimately got in trouble because I think it fell under the same thing as if you get a sunburn or a tattoo without permission. It's like destruction of government property. It was like some iteration of that. But this was like a legitimate taboo thing that got out. And later, when this came out in 2008, I was like, no. Like, I remember this happening for real, even if this is a hoax version of it.
Wow.
Interesting.
That's wild.
Technically, this would be cannibalism, right? Or is it lacking some extra trait that separates that from cannibalism?
Let's look it up, boys.
What's the definition of cannibalism?
A blood sausage, too.
I mean, blood sausage, I think it would totally, you could probably get, as long as someone doesn't, like, is eating your own toenails cannibalism? The eating of human flesh by human beings from Cannibalism, which is attested from the same year, humans that eat human flesh, from the Spanish cannibal or carnivale, a savage, Christopher Columbus renditions of the Caribs, so maybe from the Caribbean. People from the Caribbean, Calino, Carina, natives were believed by Europeans to be anthropophagites.
I have to just ask this. I mean, and it's maybe worthy of its own tangent, but is Bach Saga cannibalism?
Like just reading it, or like literally in the book?
The literal practice at like a technical enough level, is that not also cannibalism, or does it matter at what point of the gestation period you're basically through until it's like no longer, like it becomes cannibalism?
Well, like isn't like feminism cannibalism then? Like, or what about like a mother who practices just eating the placenta? Isn't placenta eating a form of cannibalism? I mean,
that's a way better example. That I do think that placenta falls within the definition of cannibalism.
Accepted in modern society.
I think it does too.
Dude, The Atlantic has this article on the lucrative black market of human fat in the 16th and 17th century. So, I mean,
it's just Fight Club, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think Fight Club makes it. Ooh, we're gonna be careful about F-chat. F-chat's uncensored. Ooh.
What did we see there?
Somebody's chewing the fat.
Nice.
And they were kings. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, Okay, so but we did talk about fat. We did talk about fat. Maybe is there more that you wanted to bring up about Adrenochrome?
Thomas.
I mean, how much do you want to go into, man? We can give a
Go from
breakdown.
go down the beginning. The
We got
middle
another
is
half hour, so
the middle's not the
Okay, well,
beginning.
here, yeah,
The
let's
middle's
do
Hunter S. Thompson. So
just
how far
yeah,
do you
okay.
go?
I want to go pre-middle. I definitely want to go before Hunter S. Thompson because most people's introduction to this topic is either through Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the book, more likely the movie with Johnny Depp because he like holds up in a little vial, and it's also because it gets elevated to like, wow, these experienced drug addicts are actually taken back by how potent this thing is. It must be like really incredible. That's why it stands out, and it's ultimately because of that particular scene in the book / movie. There's been other times, and it comes up in
Okay, I'm
popular
sorry.
media.
I like that I went to an Adrenochrome is a baseless QAnon conspiracy theory, and the thing
Right.
that popped up was a video of George freaking Soros, like
yeah.
that, like an advertisement for him. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, so actually, that's a perfect segue, man, because that's ultimately the number one counter argument to Adrenochrome is that it's a baseless QAnon conspiracy theory. And the truth is actually way more fascinating than that. So let me give you the true parts of this, which you're going to be like, no, that's not true. So
Nice.
truth one that gets denied is that Adrenochrome would never have been discovered if it weren't for direct funding by the 33rd degree Scottish Rite Supreme Council Northern Jurisdiction. Never would have been investigated whatsoever, and all of the early Adrenochrome research papers all say thank you to the 33rd degree Supreme Council Northern Jurisdiction Scottish Rite. So that was just one thing that's like,
So you're welcome.
That's not crazy conspiracy stuff. That's like legitimate. Like once you start seeing that coming up on all the research, and the research that I'm talking to starts in the 1930s and it extends right around until the 1950s, 1960s, in which case a lot of this research, in my opinion, gets kind of co-opted by CIA, and now it's top secret, and now no one's publishing any of their findings on this ever again, even to 2025, outside of some like obscure medical reasons. So originally it gets found because they're looking for something called Toxin X. I think that's something that Carl Jung came up with, was that Toxin X was a substance that could be spontaneously generated by the human body in a closed system due to some unknown, if it was diet, if it was a thought form, it could have been anything, but that once a Toxin X was introduced to your system, it made you crazy. And the reason that they were trying to search for this explanation is because you would have, and I want to emphasize, elite children, like the children of rich and powerful that had access to all the resources and medical information and everything. And all of a sudden they see that their progeny, their 20-year-old son that's supposed to inherit the whole dynasty, is starting to act a little bit freaking crazy. He's starting to like say weird stuff and he's starting to act really strange. And they're looking for a solution, because if it was any other disease, at least they could amputate or they could burn it off or they could bloodlet their way out of this. But once they went crazy, then it was sort of like, we don't know how to address this. So long story short is that the elites get together, and then through the Scottish Rite funding, they're like, where do we put all this funding money? And like, we want to solve this problem. We want to solve the issue that we're rich and we still don't have a solution to passing on our wealth and everything onto our progeny. And it took this form of looking into what they called dementia praecox, which basically means going crazy early. Because going crazy when you're 70, everyone's like, grandpa went crazy. That's the way that humanity works. But if it's like your 20-year-old kid, there's not so much of like, 20-year-olds, they just develop schizophrenia and dementia. It's just normal. It's not normal, and it ruins like the whole plan. So this is the very beginnings. This is like early 1900s into the 1930s. That this image exactly is what got me in trouble, by the way.
Really?
What?
Yeah, dude, I had I was just testing out YouTube, and I had a silent video that I just removed all the audio from, and I blurred all the text except for that frame. And when they told me what I did wrong, they gave me a timestamp on that exact image with the little vial, and they marked it as like false, dangerous information. But that is a legitimate vial that
Yeah.
someone actually ordered. And I guess that's another.
And it says not for drug or household or other usage, right? Like it says not for
So
other usage.
here's some more
Besides
important information: is that there's something called adrenochrome semicarbazone, and then adrenochrome monocarbazone. I believe I probably got the mono one wrong, but the semicarbazone variation of adrenochrome is essentially like a shelf stable version that's been turned into some kind of a salt, or it's at least it's not quote unquote fresh. That there's a huge difference between these two. So the original researchers that were funded by the Scottish Rite, one of them was Dr. Abram Hoffer, and the other one was Dr. John Smithies, and they found out almost like immediately that only fresh adrenodern would actually have these very, very lucid psychedelic effects, and that anything that had been sitting out for more than like an hour, I guess, or anything that had been intentionally combined with silver oxide, I believe, in order to extenuate the decomposition process. That once you did that and made it shelf stable, that the psychological effects completely went away. So all of this QAnon nonsense, conspiracy theory debunking stuff tends to use the semicarbazone shelf stable version because it's easier to transport, easier to work with. And even in the original reports dating back to the 1950s by Abram Hoffers and Smithies, they specifically mentioned that a lot of the scientists they ran into, and I'll paraphrase this because I don't have the quote in front of me, but it was like there's this odd pattern that they detected, and it was that the scientists that worked directly with adrenochrome all stated that it had deep and very noticeable psychological effects, and that the scientists that didn't actually work with it and only looked at it on paper, that they were the ones that were constantly debunking all the psychological effects. So it's like here, everyone in the field that's actually they took it themselves, they gave it to their wives, they'd invite the friends down the block over, and they would literally take sublingual and intravenous adrenochrome in like a party setting and just kind of mention what they were going through. So like these are documented effects by the guys that found it and researched it for decades. And to take it into the wild area, I'll skip forward like a few decades. That Dr. Abram Hoffer later in life, in I think 1996.
Where was Hoffer from, by the way?
What's that?
Where was Hoffer from, by the way? Abram Hoffer. You know where he was from?
Tell me, Nantucket.
Canada.
Canada. Okay.
All of the adrenochrome research in the 1950s was happening in Canada. Okay.
Okay. Fair point. Thank you, Canada. Another plus for Canada, I guess. I haven't given them enough credit. So Dr. Abram Hoffer in the 1996, I believe, he writes another paper called "The Adrenochrome Hypothesis Revisited," and this was a nod back to his original paper in the 1950s that he presented to the Scottish Rite. In 96, he makes some pretty bold freaking claims that go flat on the opposition to all the debunking theories. And he basically was talking that adrenochrome can be seen as a marker for people that are able to quickly process adrenaline spikes, in which other cases would give you a heart attack and you die from. It's kind of like the Kuru resistance, right? That like if you can make yourself immune to eating brain, you're technically more capable of surviving in any condition. And now with people that had high levels of adrenochrome, specifically schizophrenics, they had these high levels of adrenochrome in their blood, and that would actually mean that if their body wasn't converting to adrenochrome, then they would have had a heart attack and they wouldn't even be here to act crazy. So long story short, again, hopefully, that in this adrenochrome hypothesis revisited, he's making the argument that adrenochrome is a marker for like an evolutionary step, so that these are people that can survive the Black Plague. These are people that can survive these high intense situations. And here's me expanding on top of that. So now I'm like being non-scientific, but if you can see that there's a benefit to get really crazy and then recover from it, because that allows your body to process high amounts of adrenaline, not die from it, and then recover from it. So almost like going to the gym. Well, almost like going to the gym, you're breaking muscle fiber so it can regrow stronger, and you break it again and regrow. Like, what if you can do that to your sanity, and that the way that it actually works, like the physiological version of that, instead of muscle fibers breaking, it's that you're flooding your system with more adrenaline than it should be able to handle, allowing it to build up a tolerance to it, generate all this adrenochrome, and then go back through that whole process over and over again. Now, when you've got these rumors of politicians eating like face fillets, like there's a reason that you might want to bring yourself to the absolute rim of sanity and then bring it back again, almost like you're going to the gym, because they're literally trying to make their genes stronger so that like their dynasty can out survive everybody else.
So, I mean, the thing is, that's not an expansion. I mean, that's great. I'm glad that you're thinking that. But just so you know, like that was literally the whole point. They were wondering if, I mean, this is a guy, Abram Hoffer from Saskatchewan.
He's also the one that put iron in Cheerios. Like, long story short.
He was huge into iron. He was huge into vitamin C. He thought that vitamin C and iron could help reduce the amount
vitamin B6 or something, niacin. He put it in all the cereals.
He thought that niacin and he thought particularly vitamin C would help reduce, with iron, would help reduce the amount of neuromelanin, which is catecholaminergic cell-rich protein and pseudomelanin that occurs in the brain because of the adrenochrome that's being produced in the brain. He thought there was too much adrenochrome, which was causing acute schizophrenia. So either like early onset dementia, like you were talking about, but before he also studied LSD, and he worked with Camp X, and he did a lot of things for the Canadian military. He also was part of the United States MK Ultra program because of University of Minnesota. He took a study program at University of Minnesota before he went back to he's in British Columbia, and then in University of Toronto, but then ended up working for the Saskatchewan Department of Health, studying acute schizophrenia, which acute schizophrenia was the original term for psychedelics before anyone used the word psychedelic, because there was phenytothym was the word to replace acute schizophrenics by Aldous Huxley. But then Augustus Stanley Owsley III, whose grandfather was the governor of, is it Alabama or Arkansas? Where's Augustus Owsley? Augustus Owsley the first, I think it was Alabama. Is that right? Kentucky. Okay.
Close enough.
One of these, for me, it's like if you didn't make it to California, your family lost Oregon Trail, and I want to understand why. But Augustus Owsley Stanley, his grandson, also he was investigator of the American Tobacco Company. He invented the term psychedelic, and psychedelic wasn't a word that was used before. They were calling it acute schizophrenics. So Abram Hoffer was looking into what were the causes of acute schizophrenia. And Aldous Huxley said, wow, and I think he never actually tried it. He never tried it, but he wrote about in Doors of Perception, the idea that there might be something to adrenochrome, that adrenochrome might cause some sort of hallucinatory effects.
And he was just repeating what he heard from Dr. Humphrey Osmond, I believe, who is another one of these adrenochrome researchers.
Who was British, but he did work in Canada. Correct. Exactly.
He was a Brit guy, and he's the one that is credited with Aldous Huxley's own writings, that he's the one that gave him mescaline for the first time. And when he was giving him mescaline and telling him about all these other psychedelics they were looking into, he mentioned adrenochrome to him. So Aldous Huxley takes not just that very real mescaline experience with him, but he takes all these things that he was told by Osmond, and he includes adrenochrome right next to mescaline and LSD in his Doors of Perception. And through that reference, that's the one that ultimately gets resurfaced again, not just in Clockwork Orange, because Anthony Burgess read that in one of Aldous Huxley's other books, and Anthony Burgess wrote it in A Clockwork Orange, which Kubrick adapts, and then it also becomes part of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And none of that would have happened without that Aldous Huxley reference, and the Aldous Huxley reference doesn't exist without the Humphrey Osmond introducing it to him when he's given a mescaline.
Wow.
So very quickly makes its way into Zeitgeist, and from William Burroughs also, there's mentions of it, I think, in Inner Zone or Tales from Inner Zone. But Adrenochrome is the way it's referred to in Clockwork Orange. Hunter S. Thompson talks about taking it in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas while hanging out with the Virgin Girl, which I think is kind of the insinuation there as well. Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72 mentions adrenochrome in the footnotes of Chapter April, page 140. He says, it was sometime after midnight in a ratty hotel room, and my memory of the conversation is hazy due to the massive ingestion of booze, fatback, and 40 cc's of adrenochrome. So at very least, that's
If you, I wouldn't
Take it what
suggest
you will.
pulling it up on this live, but if you go to my X account and you go to the highlights, I've got 2 threads on Adrenochrome, and if you're looking for all the different Hollywood references and the evolution of them, I think that one's pinned on the top of my profile right now. It's got a picture of Starlight from The Boys. Yeah, that one right there. So this one, it got popular. It's got like over 15 million combined views and all like the sub posts in it. And
Nice.
this one traces the very first mention of psychedelics in Hollywood all the way up to every different reference of Adrenochrome that I think I've ever found in TV and movies. And if there's any that I have missed, like please add a comment to this thread because I'll include it in the next version of this.
Yeah, this is a fun list to go through.
Yeah,
Alex actually William Gibson, the Gibson dude.
Burning
Cyberspace.
Chrome. Burning Chrome. It's literally references, and they talk about how it needs to oxidize, and if you don't oxidize those last few molecules, that you'll go crazy. So like there was this knowledge that like you needed to handle it with care, otherwise it would cause acute schizophrenia.
Yeah, Dark Crystal about Adrenochrome.
Some of these are stretches. So they talk about fear salting the meat. So like if you scared someone, the meat is more tasty to this like horrible entity, which I think is just like another inside reference to, you know, Adrenochrome.
Which one is this? Crimson Corpse Records, Sacramento Punk Band, The Appetite for Adrenochrome.
What makes this notable is this is pre Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas movie. Like once Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, the movie came out, now it becomes a household name. Now it's no longer this weird niche, like underground reference. So the fact that you would name your album after this substance meant that they were probably well familiar with the Aldous Huxley and the William Gibson and the Hunter S. Thompson references.
For sure, man. That's crazy.
Another Canadian in the audience right now, Crypto Alchemist Bernie says, "What up, family? Hit that like, you all." Delta says, "Hey, Bernie, gutsy, bro." Is that right? Is gutsy mean gutsy, or does that mean something else? Like, is that like thank you so much? Great,
Good to see you.
Good to see you. That's what it is. I feel so old. Excellent work you've been putting out and getting into recently, and congrats on the work you posted about the other day. Great to hear, man. Yeah, everybody check out Crypto Alchemist and the new work he's doing. Very proud and happy to promote what he's up to right now because he's doing amazing stuff. He's got an interview with some important people coming up soon, and he's been doing some amazing research, not into cannibalism or vampires, but actually into solutions for problems. So good job, bro. Yeah. Okay. Oprah, satanic worship, talking about Adrenochrome.
This is blood magic. There's the famous Simpsons episode where Burns discovers that if he gets blood from Bart, then he can extend his life. And this becomes, I mean, this is kind of like a known practice in Silicon Valley. They've got blood boys that like, you know, follow you around that have vegan diets.
It's one of the reasons I stopped being a vegan. I was like,
there's this reference in the Franklin cover-up by John DeCamp where he describes some forms of cannibalism that happen at Bohemian Grove. For the record, I think that the claims are dubious, but it nevertheless
false, categorically false. No one would ever do anything like that. These are decent men. These are decent men. Okay. All right. These are our friends and family. We love you.
Regardless, this is the source of this like conspiracy mythology that grows. Like it just keeps getting stacked on top of it. This is one of those building blocks.
Ooh, chicken, concentrated morphine solution called chicken. No, it's literally called chicken. Oh God. Oh man, pizza. Okay, so wait, we're supposed to talk about that. So here's the thing. Eventually it gets to the point where it all becomes complete lies, categorically false nonsense. And that's where, you know, the weirdest stuff happened. It's the government conspiracies, these horrible, crazy, schizophrenic online internet folks that were telling you that you shouldn't get disgusting people that thought you shouldn't get tried and true and safe medicine, that they know so much. I mean, obviously we should be listening. Like, ask your doctor which vaccines are right for you, because obviously there's a bunch of great ones out there and you should get as many as you can. Got to catch them all, I say, like Pokemon. Just try to.
This is the reason. This is the reason there's a CVS and a Walgreens on every corner. You're supposed to go to one each day and get another one.
You should get a booster. And when's the last time you got a booster? You think you're cool because you need a booster right now. Get out of here. Stop watching our videos. What are you learning about cannibalism? Go get a booster. Get out. So anyway, like they had these crazy people on the internet that were blowing up pizza places and, and yelling at people, and they definitely weren't MK Ultra mind control victims or actors that were paid for psychological operations. No way. That's just a crazy online conspiracy you shouldn't believe. And all these idiots. We're talking about satanic ritual abuse story, and there's this completely categorically false again idea of some sort of quote cabal of theistic satanic sexual assault. I mean, it's complete nonsense. Obviously, this has never happened in history. It certainly wasn't happening then. It will never happen in the future. We live in a safe society. Just believe. Just believe. Okay. All right. Keep advertising on YouTube. Thank you very much.
Disclaimer done. Beautiful.
Now buy this Hyundai.
Yeah. So anyway, back to pizza and chicken. So like randomly, this is completely. I don't know. It's almost.
What's the name of this artist? Just remind me.
Damien Hirst.
Okay, so this is gonna get crazy, guys. So strap in a little bit. So Damien Hirst, he is an artist that gets famous for basically severing like a shark's and apart from each other and suspending it in this liquid. So you go into like a museum and you see like these sharks that have been sliced up into pieces. This becomes popularized in the movie The Cell with Jennifer Lopez, and I can't remember who the bad guy was. Vincent D'Orazio or something. No. The guy that plays the bad guy in Daredevil. I can't remember. Kingpin. Anyways.
Yeah.
Anyways, this movie, it basically takes Damien Hirst's artwork and it turns it into the movie, where there's a scene where she walks up to a cow and like these huge glass plates fall down and they slice the cow up into like 20 pieces and it spreads out. This is a direct reference to Damien Hirst's work. And here's one of this things called dots. He had a series and they were all just dots. This one was called Adrenochrome semicarbazome, and this was originally sold to a German collector and wasn't like recorded. It was like an anonymous purchase. But if you go through all of the main and the reason why that's important is because this was his largest painting that ever sold a date through Christie's. It made the news. This is what put him on the map, was this Adrenochrome semicarbazone artwork. And if you look through his public donors and the people that collected his work and traded it publicly, you'd never guess whose name shows up on this list, and it's Podesta again. So you've got this weird Podesta connection, that he was one of the earliest collectors of adrenochrome artwork before anyone even really knew what the hell adrenochrome was. And it just adds one extra. And I have this like thing of how many coincidences do you allow until you start turning into a conspiracy theorist? Some people it's one, some people it's like 7 or 15 or 100. This like it just adds to that pile for me. And the more you look into Damien Hirst's work, you can see like his influence. He's kind of like a Marina Abramovic, but in the high art world and not in the performative art world.
How many conspiracy theorists does it take to change a light bulb? All of them, because light bulbs break all the time. It's a conspiracy, even though they had LEDs first and fluorescent lights that lasted forever.
And planned obsolescence is one of the actual real conspiracies that's been proven.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So The Cell from 2000, that was pretty good. Monsters Inc. screams, but laughter also makes kids excited. Arrowhead, adrenochrome articles in 2006.
Yeah, these are all the different trip reports. And so here's another thing where it's important to know the difference between aqueous solution adrenochrome, meaning it's still in its like fluid state and it has not been shelf stabilized and it has not decomposed. That's the only kind that gives you any sort of psychological effect. So if you try and order this from Spain and it comes over, even in express mail, unless it's being shipped in dry ice.
Why did you have to drop Spain and bro? I mean, couldn't you said
because that's one of that's one
of the turtles first. Now we're gonna start shitting on Spain, all right?
One of the books that was actually written by someone that claims to have done adrenochrome and recorded the non-effects, I believe he said he ordered it from Spain. He ordered from like a metal. So anyways, it's because all of these guys that are doing these trip reports on Aroa or writing books, they're all doing this shelf-stable semicarbazome, which we've known at least since the 1950s has no psychedelic effects to it. So what you'll find on Aroa are like just debunkings.
Complete nonsense, right? You can't believe in any of this stuff. It's all a lie. That's what we're just telling you. We're just trying to help you in case some crazy person in your family starts talking about nonsense. You can just be like, no, I read that article that had the George Soros video, and I know that USA Today U.S. Aid are here to help me, and they're always trying to show me important stuff to keep me safe. And
So
Oh,
the
God,
rest of the thread,
Adrenochrome.
where you're going to start to see an evolution where we go from not saying the name of what the substance is, and just always kind of hinting at this like ubiquitous kind of blood magic, cannibalism, vampirism angle, and then all of a sudden, like right around here, Dr. Phil, he says it on air to a audience of normies, right? These are people at home ironing and taking care of the children, and they're hearing this for the very first time, and it's completely without any context. And this kind of turns it into like a literal household name, where now like you might call your mom up to like see how she's doing, and now the water cooler talk that weekend's like, oh, I heard about this new substance called adrenochrome. So this makes it popular, and now you're going to see movies and TV shows start to call it by its name and not kind of dance around and call it like fancy things like Drenchrome.
Or Adrenochrome, which is I'm trademarking that. Can we make that T-shirt? Don't do it right this second.
It's literally on the website right now.
Oh my God, Thomas. Okay, Adrenochrome, Death Maze, released a song called
This is a song by a battle rapper. He was a fairly popular battle rapper. This is an actually really sick song. Like I highly recommend listening to this song. It's very dark.
The song Adrenochrome?
Yes. Although he spells it a very specific way, and you won't be able to find it unless you like spell it the way he spells it.
Okay, go up real quick so I can see the spelling.
Is it here?
Adrenochrome. Okay.
What's the artist name again? I can't read the text that small.
Daylight 30.
That's right, Daylight.
Daylight, for sure. Okay, and then we get into the Bulgarian news report. Milan Chetskov, Bulgarian journalist, host,
which is absolutely fake. This is false. We are here to condemn and debunk this horrific misinformation.
That's all we're doing here. We just want you to know this is fake.
The feedback loop got a little loud on the Mockingbird on this one.
Right. So, study conducted by Christian Nikolov, quote, who caused death to Milan Chevetkov in an accident, shows 4 types of drugs in the blood, amphetamine, marijuana, cocaine, and bromazepam. But it turns out there may be a 5th drug. That's what they're saying. And they're trying to push this crazy idea that it's the cocktail made from Christian.
Well, here's the thing, right? Is that all 3 of us right now have adrenochrome in our blood. It would just be very trace amounts. But if you were to go through something
more than others,
like a car crash, yeah, some of us more than others. But if you were to go through a car crash and then they immediately took a blood sample, yes, they're absolutely going to find a higher level of adrenochrome, because that's what happens when your body processes an adrenaline spike. So what happened though is this was a very real, and I think someone that died in the crash was sort of like a local celebrity within Bulgaria, so it became a news item, and more than just 1 or 2 or 3 news stations all picked up on the same exact story. So for like a week or more, you had multiple Bulgarian news stations reporting on adrenochrome as if it were like this black market drug that someone got caught with doing a DUI or something. Like,
of course, what really was going on was just a natural production of adrenochrome that the natural body produces in a state of fear in a car accident, and keep advertising on our channel. Okay, so in a new removed video from Stephen DeLeonardis and musician Takashi 669, get the blood transfusion mixture that costs $20,000. So here's a story. Takashi jokes, is that stuff baby organs? Steve says, it's like adrenochrome. Nurse, don't you have to murder kids for that? Cameraman, I think that's what presidents do. Steve, yeah, so I'm doing the presidential IV. So this is the kind of thing that set people off. The reason this is in here,
it shows this is it jumping the generational gap. Like now it's not like grandpa saw Fear and Loathing when he was a teenager. Now here's like the next version of like 8 and 9-year-olds being introduced to adrenochrome.
Right, and then that's when it all gets crazy, and people that don't listen to confirmed, safe, reliable sources anymore, getting their weird information from weird guys on the internet, start getting these weird ideas. Here's Passion of the Christ actor Caviezel.
Jim Caviezel.
Yeah, Jim Caviezel from Passion of the Christ, and also he did like the documentary, or if that's a film, I think it's
he did a good child trafficking movie too.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, the Sound of Freedom.
It's based on a true story. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, or I don't know if we're allowed to say that that's good. If we're saying we have to keep our narrative in line.
The movie was
Jordan.
the movie was good.
Yeah, but like human trafficking doesn't exist either, bro. Like the whole thing is made up.
That's
right?
been
Like,
proven. Yeah, that doesn't exist.
It's actually just it's a Republican talking point and a MAGA conspiracy, bro.
And let me just be clear that as soon as Rome defeated Carthage, that was the end of it. Once the fall of the Phoenician Empire, everyone wiped their hands and they're like, we promise that no one will ever do any of that ever again, and we definitely won't take it underground and only allow it to be practiced by the military and the elites for the next 2,000 years. That definitely did not happen.
Baby oil is good for your skin and probably life extension medicine. So, like, I don't know if that's for real, but you should look into baby oil as a solution.
You've got this other thread pulled up. This one, so the previous one with Starlight is tracking the history through Hollywood. The one with Puff Daddy, this is how I introduced them. The one with Puff Daddy is like the scientific historical version of this. And one of the parts that I guess I skipped out earlier, which is just like an interesting note, is you'll see this like rabbit motif keep coming up over and over again. And it was an interesting coincidence to me that the original discovery of adrenochrome was done on rabbit experiments where they were observing that the aqueous form of adrenaline is a clear liquid, and once it was introduced to silver oxide or just to oxygen over a longer period of time, it would actually change color, and it would change color into this like bright pink, into a red, into a dark purple, into a black, and that this changing of adrenaline from clear into a color is where you get the name adrenochrome, which means color of the adrenal gland. So they had this clear adrenaline with no color, and then adrenochrome is the thing that makes it change color, hence the name.
Which is kind of the thing, is like body fat is usually kind of a yellowish color. So it's interesting that in Fight Club, the fat that they're collecting that they get from the back of this clinic might not be the fat you think it is. It's pink. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, and even cooler too, that they also observe that when aqueous solution of adrenochrome oxidizes, it actually releases a green phosphorescence. So like it actually glows green in a detectable way. So like that's just crazy to imagine if you had a big vat of adrenochrome and you just watched it overnight, that it would start glowing at a certain point.
Wow. That's wild.
So yeah, it's a lot of weird conspiracy theories on the internet, and because they're all false, we just wanted to help you understand some talking points and some facts that you can use to explain to people that none of this is real, and we're just here to help you understand that it's all just a bunch of nonsense. Go back to sleep. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess I got another cannibalism one they just throw in here, since we've already gone down some tangents. But so part of that other thread, which I highly recommend you look into, that the scientific one, is that there's early versions where they were experimenting with feeding children adrenal glands and pineal glands and pituitary glands just to see what happened. And some of the claims were that if you were to feed a child a pineal gland, that they would actually grow faster. It was like some kind of like a steroid. So your 8-year-old kid could start helping out on the farm in just 2 years instead of in like 6 years. And this became like another, in my opinion, this is like another form of cannibalism, right? This is human flesh that you're consuming regardless of what the purpose is. But this was like a medical advertised purpose. And then there's also an occult version that's rumored to be called the obscene rite, that's practiced by the Skull and Bones, which is definitely not a real secret society, and they definitely don't do any of these fake initiation rituals, but that the obscene rite also involves consuming a human pineal gland.
Here's that article there talking about feeding children adrenochrome, and this is food that does away with youth.
And then if you notice the image to the right, the image to the right has absolutely nothing to do with that feeding children pineal glands. It just happens to be a huge image of Moloch consuming like a wave of children being fed into it. Right. And this was supposed to be an article about like the World War that was happening, but like just another weird coincidence. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that there's this push to say that it's like some anti-Christian thing when, as we've shown earlier, there's a lot of examples of Christian cannibalism throughout the ages. In fact, if you watch the Skull and Bones Xirtus video, there's a video we have on this one here, Christianity and Cannibalism, Skull and Bones with David Ewing Jr. This video, how do I get that to be like more clear? Where'd it go? There it is. This video right here, dang it. Make the video the right size. Okay. Skull and Bones, Christianity and Cannibalism. This video goes really deep into all of this idea that the Christian churches for hundreds of years, maybe back to just about after Christ, really. I think, that's the whole thing, is that Christ was murdered, and then people said, no, God wanted Christ murdered, and you should really look into eating human flesh. In fact, that's what Christ wanted you to do. He said, drink my blood. And so drinking the blood of Christians and building churches out of the bones of people became completely, by the way, this is an interesting picture I took myself when I was in Spain of the sarcophagus of, what's the name? Like, in 1492, the Queen of Spain. Isabella, right? This is Isabella's coffin. But you can start looking through Catholic churches and Orthodox churches, and you'll start seeing all these skulls, and some of them are Muslims, but a lot of them are of Christians that just didn't agree with them, like Cathars or Bogomils or local people that thought, like the Essenes, like John the Baptist was an Essene, right? Like they didn't like eating human flesh. They didn't like eating animal flesh. They were a lot of time vegetarians, and they thought you had to live a pure life and kind of like a life like Christ lived. And other people thought, no, dude, you just have to drink blood and then you'll be fine. That's what you drink Jesus's blood, and you invoke Christ into your blood. And so they took their skulls, all these Christians that disagreed with them, and they made churches out of them. And you can go across Europe and you can find thousands of, actually like hundreds of thousands of these people were turned into the walls of churches all over the place, in the Vatican, in Prague, in the Czech,
I swear I've got a little piece of one somewhere on a shelf behind me.
You shouldn't swear stuff like that when there's recordings going on.
I feel like I'm beyond the statute of limitations on this.
What are the statutes of limitations? Okay, all right. I think so. Okay, cool. All right. Well, we're pretty deep. Is there anything else you wanted to make sure that we covered on this, Jordan? In terms of
no, man, this was a great shot. I know it's late for you over there, so we're gonna cut it. Thank you for your time, Thomas. Thank you as well for your time. I just want to, before I pull up your stuff, I just want to say I received all the kick-ass, much
nice
stuff from
Look at that.
America. Yeah, I got.
Look at that merch. We are profiteering off of tragedy over here.
I got that, and then I got.
We're not actually doing that. We advocate against that.
All sorts of cool stuff.
Dude, some of my most treasured collections, my treasured possessions are the conspiracy merch from Paranoid American. He makes amazing merch, really beautiful stuff, great stickers, comic books.
The Kubrick
so limited edition. This will be worth more than Bitcoin.
These two are my favorite: the Kubrick patch and the awesome Kubrick postcard. Those are my favorites, but so far I still have to open all this stuff and enjoy it all. But yeah, definitely, I'm going to pull up your site right now. Definitely go check out Paranoid America's stuff. I'm pulling up his website right here. Boom.
And you can just find it at paranoidamerican.com.
Can you guys see that?
And there's so much on it. No, I don't. I think we're still. There we go. And yeah, there's comics, there's stickers, there's little handmade toy sets that are made in editions, like 20 to 50 at the most. And there's even like a sticker book that I added because I didn't even know what a sticker book was, and I found out, and it's like the perfect place to put all your different stickers. If you got hundreds of them, like where else are you going to stack them and never be able to see them? So we got a little Paranoid American sticker book to put them all in.
Nice, that's awesome. Yeah, you guys got a lot of cool stuff on there. So I definitely recommend you guys check it out.
There's the Adrenochrome sticker, which is also a shirt. Yeah, it's right there.
Tasty.
I wasn't lying. This has been on there since forever.
Adrenochrome.
And as you can see, we have absolutely no respect for corporate logos and trademark law here.
Fair use, right? It's fair use.
Yeah, who cares? I mean, yeah, I got the Coca-Cola one too from you. I'm excited to open that up. So yeah, definitely definitely go check out Paranoid America.
The best
Yeah.
Adrenochrome merch you'll find anywhere on the planet, guaranteed.
Adrenochrome not included. You can't get that from there. Maybe
Um,
someday. Also, really quickly, let me pull up this for a second. Guys, go to F chat. I've been super stoked on the super chat, untaxed super chats, the uncensored conversation. I imagine there's some things you're going to want to talk about after this. You can say that all here at fchat.net/Xirtus. You can talk about Adrenochrome for the rest of your lives, and that won't be a problem.
and make sure to go check out Xirtus.com.
Oh, thank you.
You could also check out more about Xirtus, see his videos, learn more about his different projects and stuff that he has worked on. And if you can, if you guys can spare it, please give a little tip or donation to Xirtus and help fund his trip. He is working on a lot of different content right now. And yeah, I mean, he's always
thank
here.
you, man. If
He's
you
always
scroll
there. Sorry?
You go first. I cut you off.
No, I was just going to say he's always there week after week, pumping out great content. So yeah, if you guys enjoy the free content that he gives you, please show your way to support him.
I suggest a tithing option would make the most sense.
If you scroll the bottom a little further down, I've got actually like a pretty easy window. It's just like at the bottom of the page there. You can get propaganda and merchandise from me, and you get to support the Xirtus. It's just there from gift forms. Pretty good way to avoid tax donations. It's a pretty great service. It's the gift form thing. You can set it up, and you can also explain some things you liked or things you want in the future for us to talk about. And we always try to read these and respond, and we're making videos based on anything that you've ever. Anytime I get one of these, I'm going to email you back also, and I'll ask you like, what are some things you liked, or what are some things you want us to talk about in the future. And you can also get the crazy Xirtus merchandise, which is back a page, the propaganda and merchandise. You can get everything from an Xirtus pair of running shorts or Xirtus leggings. I've got a lot of pretty fun Xirtus merchandise right there.
I love that shirt.
It's a full wraparound. It's on both sides. Xirtus in every language. We also have a yoga mat. It's pretty comfortable. It's good material. It's more expensive in Canada, but that's the thing. It's a nice shirt, and it's pretty good. So
I like that shirt. I might check that out. That's cool.
Yeah, and look at those. You can get socks, fanny packs. You can get
do the legs come with it?
Dude, right? Yeah, if you get a girl a pair of leggings like that, she'll be yours for life. I also have the Cocapelli injection set, and there's also inverted colors, and yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff on there. So there's a Croatian flag on your butt. So yeah, sweet. Xirtus.com. Thank you, man.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we'll leave it there for tonight. God bless you guys. I love you guys, and yeah, I hope to see you guys again soon. Thanks to everyone in the chat that's watched, and please subscribe to Divulgence Podcast on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter, and yeah, that's that.
Yeah, you got to subscribe to Divulgence, which is the other channel. So check out right here. Divulgence just is posted here. Oh, just really quickly, because someone said you need to register a new religion to avoid paying taxes. Have you been to xchurch.us, our time travel Mormon church? Are you in before? Because it's happening. But make sure you go check out Divulgence Podcast. We're simultaneously streaming on all platforms. And if you go to Divulgence and subscribe, you get the chance to win an iPad, which is pretty sweet. I hope you install Linux on it or Arch. But hey, you know what? Do what you got to do with it. So sign up for that. Get in F chat. Go through the hurdles. Once you're subscribed to Divulgence, you're a step closer to winning that iPad. So good for you.
Okay, guys. Have a good night. Take care.
No, you